Imagine waking up tomorrow morning, right?
Right.
And you notice that the house you live in has moved like 3 feet to the left.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that would be terrifying.
Completely terrifying. There's no earthquake warnings, no loud noises in the night. Just this sudden, shocking realization that the ground you thought was permanent has completely shifted beneath you.
That is exactly what it feels like looking at the stack of sources we have for you today, honestly.
It really is. We are tracking this phenomenon where the bedrock of our society, things we just assumed were absolutely set in stone, is giving way.
Right. I mean, it forces you to confront how fragile our systems really are.
Exactly. We're talking about 50-year-old political dynasties just collapsing overnight. We're looking at the legal definitions of human dignity being frantically rewritten to save lives.
And even the literal physical earth beneath one of the world's largest cities quietly sinking away.
It's wild. Welcome to today's deep dive. We have a massive mission ahead of us. We are going to sift through 5 historic Indian state and territory election results, uncover some really unprecedented Supreme Court interventions, and examine economic and scientific phenomena that are quietly altering the landscape.
And the goal today is to help you, the listener, connect the dots between all these events.
Right, to see the overarching theme here, which is the sudden, sometimes violent collapse of established norms. Okay, let's unpack this. We're starting with the loudest crashes, the ones happening right at the ballot box.
Because the map has been completely redrawn, the 2026 assembly elections have delivered a shock to the system that, political scientists will be studying this for decades.
Oh, without a doubt. The sheer scale of disruption, particularly in the South and the East, is staggering. Let's jump straight into Tamil Nadu.
Let's do it.
Reading through these reports feels less like reading political analysis and more like, reading a script for a blockbuster movie.
It really does.
You have actor C. Joseph Vijay, who steps away from a film career where he is commanding, get this, 200 crore rupees per movie.
At the absolute peak of his fame, too.
Exactly. And he leaves that to start a brand new political party, the Tamilaga Vetri Kazhagam, or TVK. And in their very first electoral outing, they absolutely shatter the establishment.
They did.
But I need you to break down the actual numbers here because my mind is still blown by the scale of this.
Well, the numbers are historic. The TVK secured 107 out of 234 seats.
Wow.
Yeah, that puts them just 11 seats short of an absolute majority. They captured an astonishing 35% vote share.
Which is what, like 1.7 crore votes?
Over 1.7 crore votes, yeah. And to put that in perspective, they dismantled a deeply entrenched bipolar political landscape.
Right, a 50-year duopoly gone.
Exactly. The DMK and the AIADMK had tightly controlled this for nearly half a century.
And the casualties are staggering, honestly.
Yeah.
Chief Minister M.K. Stalin lost his Kalathar constituency.
That was a huge shock.
14 of his cabinet ministers were completely wiped out. The ruling DMK went from running the state to being reduced to 59 seats, just acting as the principal opposition.
And the AIADMK finished a distant third with just 45 seats.
It's crazy. But I've had to push back on this a little bit. As a voter looking at this, does incredible star power and the ability to draw massive crowds actually equate to the acumen needed for governance?
That's a fair question.
Because, winning a popularity contest is one thing. Running a complex state economy is an entirely different beast.
What's fascinating here is that when you dig into the underlying data, this wasn't just blind fandom or a mere popularity contest.
It wasn't.
No, it was a highly calculated surgical sweep of voter fatigue.
Right.
If you analyze the geographic breakdown, the TVK really dominated the urban heartlands.
Okay, so they went after the cities.
Right. They targeted a demographic that was simply exhausted by the established order and desperately wanted a credible alternative.
Well, the legacy parties fell back to their traditional strongholds. Right.
Exactly. The AIADMK held onto pockets in the west and north through coalition cohesion, and the DMK clung tightly to its traditional Delta heartland.
Wait, if the DMK and AIADMK still held their strongholds, how did TVK win so decisively?
This is where understanding the mechanics of our voting system is crucial. India uses a first-past-the-post system.
Right, so you don't need 50% of the vote to win a seat.
Exactly. You just need one more vote than the person in second place. So while the overall state vote shares were actually somewhat close.
Like 35% for TVK?
Yeah, and 31.4% for the DMK Alliance, and 27.2% for the AIADMK Alliance.
Right.
The TVK strategically concentrated its votes in key urban battlegrounds. Because the Legacy Party split the traditional establishment vote, the TBK slipped through the middle to claim a massive advantage in actual seats.
Oh, that makes so much sense. It wasn't just charisma, it was brilliant political geometry.
Exactly.
So Tamil Nadu was disrupted by a fresh face. If we move across the map to West Bengal, we see a fortress falling for an entirely different reason.
A very different reason, yes.
The Bharatiya Janata Party, the BJP, secured a massive two-thirds majority. They took 206 out of 293 seats.
Pulling in nearly 46% of the vote. 45.75 to be exact.
And effectively ending 15 years of uninterrupted rule by the Trinamool Congress, the TMC. I mean, the defining image of this shift has to be Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee losing her Bhabanapur seat to Suvendu Adhikari.
That was definitely the headline grabber.
How did the BJP crack a state that for so long seemed completely immune to their platform?
Well, this was a decades-long siege. Within political circles, West Bengal has long been described as the BJP's ultimate unfinished project.
Unfinished project.
Yeah, dating all the way back to the party's ideological origins with the Jana Sangh, whose founder, Syama Prasad Mukherjee, was from Bengal. To win, they had to dismantle some incredibly deep-rooted voting patterns.
How exactly do you rewire the voting patterns of an entire state, though?
The sources outline a three-pronged mechanism here. First, there was a profound fracturing of the TMC's traditional minority base.
Because historically, the Muslim vote in Bengal acted as a monolithic shield for the TMC, right?
Exactly. But in this election, that vote splintered across the Left ISF Alliance, the Congress, and the newly formed Am Janata Unayan Party, or AJUP.
So once that block cracked, the door opened.
Right. Second, the BJP tapped into an enormous well of public anger. We're talking about pervasive corruption allegations at the local level.
Combined with the visceral statewide outrage following the horrific RG Car Hospital incident.
Exactly. That tragedy cut across party lines and mobilized voters who otherwise might never have considered the BJP.
And there was a highly controversial administrative move in the background too, right? The voter roll cleanup. I want to make sure we represent both sides of this fairly.
Yes, the Election Commission executed a special intensive revision, the SAAR.
And this resulted in the deletion of roughly 90 lakh names from the electoral rolls.
Right, 90 lakh. The competing narratives here are intense. The BJP argued this was a long overdue purge of phantom voters and illegal immigrants.
While the TMC and its supporters vehemently claimed it was targeted, disenfranchisement meant to suppress their base.
Exactly. Regardless of which narrative you analyze, the physical removal of 90 lakh names undeniably altered the electoral math and eroded the TMC's foundational numbers.
It is wild how the concept of incumbency works in these scenarios. You would think being in power gives you an unbreakable advantage.
You'd think so, yes.
But looking at these sources, incumbency operates more like a massive structural stress test.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
If the bridge you've built has cracks in it, the stress test of an election will completely collapse it. But if the bridge is reinforced, it actually hardens the concrete.
A stress test is the perfect analogy. The exact same anti-incumbency pressures were applied across the entire country, but local administrations reacted in drastically different ways based on their foundational strength.
Let's look at Kerala, where the bridge completely collapsed under the pressure. The Left Democratic Front, the LDF, suffered its absolute worst performance in 40 years,
plummeting to just 35 seats.
Meanwhile, the Congress-led UDS skyrocketed to 102 seats with nearly 47% of the vote. You had 13 LDF cabinet ministers losing their seats. What was the critical failure point for the LDF?
It wasn't merely general dissatisfaction. It was a fundamental alienation of a core demographic.
Okay.
The LDF pushed aggressively for comprehensive reforms in the education sector. However, the Christian community in Kerala, which manages a vast network of educational institutions.
Right. They perceive these reforms as a direct threat to their institutional autonomy.
Exactly. The backlash was severe, prompting roughly 70% of the traditionally supportive Christian vote to migrate directly to the UDF.
70% is a massive shift.
Massive. And furthermore, you have a massive structural shift with the BJP arriving as a legitimate third bloc.
Right, winning 3 key seats, Neemuam, Kajakutam, and Chethanur.
Yeah, that officially ends the traditional two-party revolving door that has defined Kerala politics for decades.
So Kerala broke under the stress test. But then you look at the anomalies in our sources, the places where the bridge held firm. In Assam, the BJP-led NDA won 102 out of 126 seats, comfortably retaining power. And in Puducherry, the NDA, spearheaded by Chief Minister N. Rangasamy, held their ground with 18 out of 30 seats.
Rangasamy even won both the constituencies he ran in.
Right. Why did the stress test fail to break them?
Well, because leaders like Hemanta Biswa Sarma in Assam continually reinforced their bridge before the stress test arrived.
Also,
Sarma deployed a highly potent combination of aggressive welfare redistribution, ensuring tangible financial benefits reached targeted households, paired with strong ideological consolidation.
so it proves that incumbency isn't inherently a disadvantage.
Not at all. If an administration can constantly adapt its policies to meet the immediate economic needs and identity politics of its electorate, it can survive the crucible.
It's all about who gets to manage the macro-level foundations of our society. But when the political executive is in flux, or when laws fail to keep up with reality, it's usually the judiciary that has to step into the void.
To maintain the micro-level foundations.
Exactly. I'm talking about basic human rights and human dignity.
And the Supreme Court documents in our stack today reveal a judiciary that is actively, aggressively stepping in to reinforce those foundational rights.
Frequently utilizing extraordinary legal measures to bypass a sluggish system. The most jarring example of this is the recent expansion of the Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act, the RPWD Act.
Yes, this was a crucial intervention.
The Supreme Court took up the cause of survivors of forcible acid ingestion, officially recognizing them as acid attack victims under the law and making this protection completely retrospective.
To grasp the gravity of this, you really have to look at the flaw in the original 2016 legislation.
What was the flaw?
Well, the law was written to protect individuals who had acid thrown at them. It completely overlooked the horrific, agonizing reality of victims, predominantly women in domestic abuse situations, who are physically forced to swallow acid.
That is just terrifying to even think about.
It is, and because of the exact phrasing of the law, these survivors were being denied essential disability benefits and financial compensation.
So what does this all mean? The sources mention that the Solicitor General actually informed the court that the government was already aware of the loophole, right?
Yes, they were.
They were already working on amending the act and had sent it to the Ministry of Legislative Affairs. So if the machinery was already moving, why did the Supreme Court feel the need to flex its plenary powers under Article 142 to bypass the waiting period?
This raises an important question. It's about the nature of justice versus the speed of bureaucracy. Think of Article 142 as an emergency constitutional override switch.
Okay.
The Supreme Court is allowed to use it to pass any order necessary to do complete justice. The court recognized that legislative amendments take time committees, drafts, parliamentary sessions.
And these survivors can't wait for that.
Exactly. They require immediate, continuous, and highly specialized medical care. They are literally fighting for their lives. Waiting for the legislative wheels to turn was a luxury they just did not have.
By using Article 142, the court instantly unlocked vital monetary support and medical benefits.
Refusing to let vulnerable lives fall through a bureaucratic crack.
It's incredible to see the law act as a shield in real time like that. And we see that same fierce defense of dignity in how the Supreme Court handled the issue of bail conditions recently.
Oh, the Odisha case.
Yes, they absolutely excoriated courts in Odisha for imposing what they called odious and regressive conditions on Adivasi and Dalit individuals.
It's shocking. Local courts were literally forcing marginalized people to clean police stations for 2 months just to secure bail.
The Supreme Court's intervention there is a stark reminder that structural caste-based biases don't just exist in society.
Right. They can hide within the very legal institutions designed to protect people. The court had to actively dismantle that bias from the top down.
Which brings us to another profound legal debate in our stack regarding the foundation of human identity itself. The Supreme Court is currently hearing arguments on the Transgender Persons Act of 2026.
Yes, and the core of the debate is the fundamental right to self-identification.
Right. Petitioners are arguing that a person should have the right to declare their own gender identity. But the current law mandates that an individual must get approval from a government medical board.
You have the Chief Justice flagging the danger of individuals potentially masquerading as transgender to fraudulently grab welfare benefits.
While the petitioners present data showing the risk of someone faking their identity for a benefit is a mere 0.001%.
It is a profound philosophical and legal tension. Does the foundation of identity belong inherently to the individual? Or does the state have the right to act as the gatekeeper of that identity to protect the integrity of its welfare systems?
It is yet another example of the system desperately trying to manage borders and definitions.
Exactly.
And that transition is perfect, because while court rulings and election nights are loud, public events that make the front pages, some of the most profound structural shifts in our sources today are happening entirely in the background.
Yes, they are slow, they are quiet, and they are incredibly dangerous.
The quiet crises. Look at the economic data buried in our stack. There is a terrifying detail regarding medical inflation.
It's getting out of hand.
It really is. It has skyrocketed to the point where every day, middle-class households are being forced into devastating decisions. They are liquidating their family jewelry, selling off ancestral property, or taking out crippling loans just to survive a standard hospital visit.
It is a completely silent erosion of generational wealth.
And that micro-level financial anxiety for families is mirrored at the macro level of our financial institutions. We see in the reports that the Securities and Exchange Board of India, SEBI, is attempting to allow banks and pension funds to trade in commodities.
Right, hoping to inject life and liquidity into the market.
But the banking watchdogs are pulling the emergency brake. They are pushing back, stating that the economic timing simply isn't right.
There is a palpable hesitation, a deep-seated anxiety about the stability of the broader economic foundation.
Which brings us to an incredible piece of scientific research in the stack that serves as the perfect, literal embodiment of everything we've been talking about today.
The Mexico City subsidence.
Yes. Let's look at Mexico City. NASA and the Indian Space Research Organization, ISRO, have launched a joint satellite called NISAR.
Right.
This satellite is currently in orbit, and its entire job is to track real-time, minute changes on the Earth's surface. And right now, it is measuring the actual physical subsidence, the literal sinking of Mexico City.
Because Mexico City was built on an ancient lake bed, due to the relentless extraction of groundwater to serve its massive population, the clay beneath the city is compacting.
The city is literally collapsing in on itself, drawing down into the Earth.
And the NISAR satellite is tracking this geological failure from space down to the exact millimeter.
Here's where it gets really interesting. I want you to compare the physical sinking of Mexico City to the financial sinking of a family dealing with medical debt.
Okay, I see where you're going.
Both of these are invisible, creeping forces. When you walk down the street in Mexico City, you don't feel the ground dropping. Just like when you pay a slightly higher grocery bill, you don't feel your life savings vanishing.
Right.
But over time, the foundation quietly erodes. Until one day, the doors in your house don't close properly because the frame is warped. Or you look at your bank account after a medical emergency and realize the floor has completely fallen out from under you.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it reveals a fascinating paradox about human civilization at this exact moment in time. Look at the breadth of the sources we've discussed today.
Yeah.
We see the defense sector pushing urgently for next-generation, high-tech warfare capabilities to secure physical borders. We see the government debating whether to issue Aadhaar cards exclusively to children to somehow manage the flow of undocumented immigrants.
We even see the Augusta Westland middleman filing pleas in court as the state tries to untangle massive webs of defense corruption.
Exactly. Every single one of these actions, whether it's an election strategy, a Supreme Court override, or tracking a city from space, is an example of humanity frantically trying to measure, manage, and secure ourselves against an inherently unstable world.
We're obsessed with engineering stability because we are terrified of the collapse. We build these massive labyrinthine structures, legal frameworks, political coalitions, satellite networks, all in a desperate attempt to nail the foundation to the floor.
But the ground keeps moving.
It really does. It has been quite a journey today. We've traveled from the shocking blockbuster-level electoral upsets that unseated half-century-old political dynasties in Tamil Nadu and West Bengal,
to the Supreme Court drawing an absolute hard line to protect the dignity of acid attack survivors and marginalized communities against a sluggish bureaucracy.
and we've examined the quiet, creeping anxieties of our time, from the silent erasure of household savings due to medical bills to the millimeter-by-millimeter sinking of our megacities.
And it leaves us with a rather profound contradiction to consider as we close. We now possess technology so incredibly advanced, like the NISAR satellite, that we can orbit the Earth and precisely measure the millimeter-by-millimeter sinking of a concrete street in Mexico City.
Right.
But we do not have a satellite that can measure the slow, invisible erosion of a family's financial stability when faced with a sudden medical crisis.
No, we don't.
And we certainly don't have an instrument sensitive enough to pinpoint the exact moment a political dynasty loses its connection to the people until the votes are already counted and the damage is done.
Yeah.
So the question you have to walk away with today is this. If human ingenuity can engineer technology brilliant enough to track the subtle, microscopic shifting of the Earth's crust from outer space,
How do we engineer better societal tools to detect when our human systems are about to cave in? That is a phenomenal question to chew on. You can measure the concrete, but how do you measure the culture? Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the ground you walk on. Keep exploring the sources around you. We'll catch you next time.